Our food culture is full of delicacies that for one reason or another have fallen from the apex of gourmet delicacy to the nadir of polybag pablum. Well, take, for instance, marshmallows. You know, it's hard to believe that these factory-formed gluey gobs destined for flaming twigs were originally handmade masterworks formed one at a time in the finest confectionery shops of Paris. Those marshmallows, or pâte de Grimoire, I believe, possessed subtle flavors, beautiful textures, and heady perfumes. But nope, no more. Nope. Years of mediocrity have deadened our palates and hardened our hearts to this magnificent manifestation. Fine with you? Okay, no problem. Well, it's not all right with me, okay? It's time for all true marshmallow lovers to rise up and take back the candy that perhaps more than any other qualifies as You know, we've become so separated from our traditional foodways that folks don't even remember that once upon a time, marshmallows grew on bushes. Let's see. No. You know, there's nothing quite like a warm, freshly picked marshmallow. Okay. Marshmallows don't actually grow on bushes, okay? But if it weren't for a plant called the marshmallow, we would never have any marshmallows. In fact, I'm here in this swamp.
It's a marsh, not a swamp.
Why can't you wait for your cue? Nutritional anthropologist, it's easy.
Because you take too long getting to it. Now get paddling. I saw some Althea officinalis right over there.
All right. Keep your pants on. You could do this too, you know.
Behold, the marshmallow.
Wow, it looks so dead.
Well, that means there's probably plenty of mucilage in the roots.
Hey,
as you know, Platina, in his classic 15th century cooking treatise.
You mean, of course, De Honesta Voluptate et Valetudine.
On right pleasure and good health.
That's what I said.
Devotes an entire chapter to mallow and its usual applications, most of which were medicinal.
You have to remember that back in those days, mallow root extract was used to treat everything from sore throats to urinary tract infections.
But to make this one into candy, we're going to have to boil it, strain it, boil it again with sugar, and whip it.
Wow, that sounds like fun. Of course, the reason for all that is that the mucilage, the sap inside the roots, is packed full of proteins and polysaccharides, which will provide stability to the marshmallow candy. Luckily, there are other ways to skin that chemical cat. A processed extract of the acacia tree called gum arabic has been used to stabilize commercial marshmallows for close to 100 years. But what normal kitchen is going to have gum arabic? Luckily, gelatin, which is a protein derived from connective tissue inside animals, it can do the job, and it's a lot easier to find. Now, gelatin is handy stuff to be sure, but it does not like to dissolve in hot liquid unless it is soaked in cold liquid first. We call that blooming. So I have here 3 envelopes worth, and that's a total of 3/4 of an ounce. And we'll simply pour over half a cup of cold water. And we'll let that sit and kind of percolate for a few minutes. Oh, make sure you've got your whisk attachment on your mixer. We're going to need that. Now, as to syrup construction, here's how it goes. Another half cup of water goes into a small saucepan, along with a 1.5 cups of sugar. It's about 12 ounces by weight. 1 cup of corn syrup. I like to use a plunger for that, sticky stuff. And 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. We put that to medium-high heat and cover for 3 to 4 minutes, or just until the sugar really starts to dissolve. Now, what's going on in here? Okay, candy making, with the possible exception of chocolate work, is all about controlling the concentration of sugar syrups. Doesn't matter if you're making nougats or lollipops, taffy, toffee, fudge, caramel sauce, or marshmallows. It's all about how much sugar is in that solution. Now, centuries of experimentation have rendered a semi-reliable guide called the Ball system, based on the fact that syrups of different concentrations act differently when dropped into cold water. Some form threads, a little more concentrated. They make different kinds of balls. And then finally, you've got your crack stages. Kind of tough to interpret. Luckily, we don't have to, because someone figured it all out in plain, good old-fashioned Fahrenheit. Now, you can see that at 240, our marshmallows, that's the same as fudge, and that's, I don't know, what is that, softball stage, I think? Right. I don't have to think about it, though, because I've got a thermometer. Now, at sea level, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. But as the water boils out of a solution and that solution becomes more concentrated, the boiling point goes up. So all we have to do is boil this until enough water leaves the pan for the remaining solution to hit 240 degrees. Now, that's a snap as long as you're in possession of a candy thermometer like this. Now, by my calculations, well, I think we're talking 7 to 8 minutes here. All right, 2:30. We've still got 10 degrees to go. That gives us just enough time to consider one of the unsung heroes of this bubbly elixir. Corn syrup is the candy maker's friend because it can prevent regular sugar, that is sucrose molecules, from growing together and forming big, crunchy crystals, which is what they want to do, especially in a pot that is slowly having all of its water cooked out of it. Now, corn syrup prevents this because it's not sucrose and can't grow crystals with it, even though it's made from the same stuff as sugar. How is that? Well, it all starts with corn. Corn. Whereas the problem is no matter how delicious it is, sweet corn really isn't that sweet because it doesn't really contain that much sugar. What it contains is a lot of starch. Now, if you're a fan of this show, you'll recognize that a starch molecule is just a long chain of single sugars called glucoses, which are made up of, well, AA batteries in this case. So, if a starch is 100% sugar, which it essentially is, then it ought to taste sweet, right? To find out, let's consult the human tongue and one of its thousands upon thousands of taste buds. Give this a try, sir.
Okay. Yeah, tastes like library paste. Can you eat that stuff again?
Charming. He's right, though. The human tongue simply cannot recognize a molecule of this shape and size. However, if we were to conjure up a little culinary magic, say a little acid and perhaps a bit of heat, we might be able to change this molecule. See? Science is fun. Now we've broken up this big starch into small little glucoses. Give that a try. Huh?
Sweeter? Yeah. But sweet? No.
Well, that's true. Glucose isn't typically sensed as being that sweet. But you know what? If we were to conjure up the culinary magic yet one more time, this time in the form of enzymes.
That has got to be the lamest scientific metaphor I've ever tasted.
Hey, you want to spring for a scale model of an enzyme? Yeah, I didn't think so. The important thing is that by changing some of the glucose into a much sweeter fructose, and by dissolving the whole thing into a solution, we produce high fructose corn syrup, which can be sweet, if not sweeter, than sucrose, which, by the way, is made up of equal portions of glucose and fructose. How is it?
Oh, baby, now that's sweet. But I gotta tell you, that fly and monkey stuff, lame.
Oh, what's the matter, Cat Dr. Tongue?
Nice touch. I like that. Well, 8 minutes have gone by, and sure enough, we are at 240 degrees. Kill the heat, thermometer out, and I'm going to grab a little heat protection. I'll take this straight over to the mixer. Obviously, this is a lot like kind of culinary napalm, so you want to be very careful. Ooh, take a look here. We can see that our gelatin has thoroughly bloomed. We're in good shape there. Snap that into place. Turn the mixer to stir. And we're going to pour the syrup. I'm aiming for the side of the bowl, not the beaters. Very slowly down the side of the bowl. Respect the syrup. Now, the name of the game here is air. We want to get as much air into this as possible. So once the syrup is safely in, crank up the speed to high. Now it's going to take a minimum of 13 minutes to blow as many bubbles as we want into this syrup. In fact, 13 minutes will render a relatively soft marshmallow. I like mine a little stiffer, so I'm going to go with 15 minutes at high. Either way, your patience will be rewarded. Of course, when your mixture is 1 minute from done, add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. There. Needless to say, air-whipped sugar syrup is pretty sticky stuff, so proper pan prep is critical. Now, I like to use a metal 9x13 pan because glass pans tend to be more rounded in the corners, and I want a nice, sharp shape. So we'll hit that with some no-stick spray. But unfortunately, that is not enough. I have here a 1/4 cup each confectioner's sugar and cornstarch, and we're going to need that a couple times in this process. So we just dust some of that in, cover with aluminum foil, and shake to coat. Perfect. And we are done. What was once just kind of a flat little puddle of goo is now a big, fluffy, white ball of goodness. And of course, the reason is air. This is pretty much like, well, making a meringue, only the candy version. Now, I don't want to waste any of this, but by the same token, I know that I'm not going to get it all out of here. It's just too gosh darn sticky. It would help if I used a spatula that was properly lubed. I'm going to fall on that spot. I just know it. Now, I'm just going to get that out into our pan as quickly as possible. And it is a real mess because it is so sticky. If you get it on you, odds are you will never get it off. You can see it's already starting to set. The second that agitation stops. There, now just smooth it out best you can. We're now looking for it to be very attractive. Kind of push it into the corners. You can see it's already sticking to the spatula and moving around like one big sheet of gooiness. There. This part, well, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to lick that off at some later date. Now, sprinkle whatever remaining confectioner sugar and cornstarch you have. Actually, you don't want to use all of it. We'll need a little bit more when we turn these out. Now, allow this to cool to room temperature and then just recover with the aluminum foil we used on the pan earlier. At least 4 hours must pass before you dive into these. Overnight would be better, but if you're anything like me, you're not going to be able to wait. Well, it's been 3 hours and minutes, and we're ready to depan our marshmallows. So, if we played our cards right, these should flip right out. So, a little bit more dusting on the bottom, and we will cut. Not with a knife, but with my favorite pizza cutter. We're going to work in strips about 1 inch wide. Whatever you do, don't worry about getting these perfect. Perfect is for factories. You want that old world hand-cut look. There. Now line them back up again. Sure sign of hand-cut marshmallows, the square. We've still got some pretty sticky edges on them. So what I'm going to do, dust on a little bit more sugar and cornstarch, and then just kind of break them up and toss them around on the board. Now's a good time to contemplate storage. Although tins would be traditional, I like gallon-size zip-top bags. Kept in a pantry, you can probably store these for 2, maybe 3 weeks. I know, not as long as you might keep factory-made marshmallows, but trust me, what they don't have in longevity, they make up for in flavor. Now just look at that, would you? Beautiful sight. Of course, homemade marshmallows can also be used as ingredients in rusty old classics like the puffed rice treat. Brings it to whole new heights, believe me. Or you could cut your marshmallows into small cubes and float them on top of Good Eats' patented cocoa. Après-ski. Of course, if you really want to commit to the mini marshmallow format, you might want to take advantage of extrusion. Just load up your marshmallow mix in a piping bag fitted with a wide, round tip. And instead of dusting a 9x13 pan, you would lube and dust a piece of parchment paper on a sheet pan and just lay out nice long lines like this. As soon as you have 4 or 5 nice white ropes lined out, you're going to have to hit the tops with your sugar starch mixture for no sticking later. Let this set up for about 4 hours and snip with scissors. Of course, once you get into extrusion, it's kind of like being in the plastics industry. You can make anything you want as long as you've got a suitable mold that's food safe, of course. Check this out. I got this at a local junk shop. It is nothing but an old-fashioned tin-lined chocolate Easter bunny mold. So what we do is we spray that up with a little lube, which we have already done, and layer out and fill her up with the white stuff. Just get everything, kind of work it down into the crevices. Don't worry about being too neat. The mold will take care of the rest. Here, in 4 hours, we'll have 16 perfect little bunnies. That's pretty fast, even for bunnies. Just imagine in no time you'll have your own little bunny army ready to do your bidding. Don't care for white? Not a problem. Check this out. You can either add food coloring directly to the marshmallow mix, or you can simply roll the finished bunnies in colored sugar. I just love rabbit, don't you? No? Fine. Let's shoot for the moon. Place a standard household heating pad set to high inside a large mixing bowl, and then nestle another bowl into that containing a pound of chopped good quality semi-sweet chocolate. The goal here is to melt the chocolate without having it lose its temper. That is, we don't want it to move past the mystical state where the melting points of the chocolate's polymorphic fats align. In other words, we want to dip something into that and have it set up hard, not gooey. Now we're going to use a thermometer for that, and we're going to shoot for 94 degrees. Don't pass 98. Beyond there, be dragons. Now, meanwhile, we have 2 dozen cookies. You can use sugar cookies, peanut butter cookies, whatever you like. Half of those need to go onto a cooling rack set over a sheet pan for cleanliness sake. And take your marshmallow mix and pipe it onto the cookies. Basically, we're just going to build a cookie sandwich here. Top it thusly. Repeat with each cookie. So you've got 1 dozen little sandwiches. By the time the marshmallow sandwiches have cooled and set, your chocolate should be just right. Give it a few stirs with the old thermometer. Well, 97. That'll certainly do if we move quickly. I'm going to turn off the heat. Now, carefully dip one side of each sandwich thusly and give a little spin on your way up and return it to the rack. Now, we could, of course, completely submerge these devices, but I think that that would leave us not only with a really big mess, but with an overwhelming amount of chocolate. Better to show a little restraint. Delicious, and you wouldn't be able to do it if it weren't for the extrusion of the marshmallow. Now, if you grew up in the South the way I did, you'll know exactly what to call this. But since that name is copyrighted, I'll remain mum on the subject. Now, everybody knows that Zeus and his cronies up on Mount Olympus frolicked about all the livelong day, sipping on nectar, bring that here, sugar, and snacking on a succulent sustenance called ambrosia. My, but that does look nice. Problem is, none of the citizens of this fair lofty land bothered to write down the recipe. So, about 100 years ago, we Southerners decided to suss it out our own selves. Let's go on in the kitchen. I'll show you how. Come on. Put 1/2 cup of heavy cream and a tablespoon of sugar in your mixing bowl and stick that old whiskey thing on there. What do they call that? An attachment. Anyhow, whip that up until it looks just like a big old white fluffy cloud. Whew. That's noisy. I don't know. Whew. Calamity. I went and dozed right off. Almost overbeat that cream right there. Well, look at that. I almost did that in. It looks more like butter now, but I guess it'd be okay. We're going to add 4 ounces of sour cream. Now, you know, no matter what this turns out to be, it's going to be some kind of delicious, you know. So I'm going to just stir that on in there. I'll try not to nap off this time. I promise, dear. All right. Now, let's get that old bowl out of there, shall we? there. We're going to stir in some bits and pieces, starting with 1 cup of Clementine segments. Now, this here's a Yuletide dish, you know, and that time of year, well, these little jewels, they just jump right up in your grocery cart. They do, I'm serious. All right, follow that up with a cup each of chopped pineapple. Now, you know fresh is best, don't you? Sure you do. Same could be said of this shredded coconut. Now, I recall the first one of these I ever did see when I was a boy. Thought my dad had dug up a Yankee cannonball. He brought that in the house. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going to buy that kind that comes in the bag. But you ain't going to do it. No, you're not going to. Next, let's see here. A cup of chopped pecans. Pecans. I don't care how you say it. And have a cup of maraschino cherries. Have you ever seen anything so red? I suspect you have not. Now for the piece de resistance. We're going to put in 3 cups of homemade miniature marshmallows. Goodness me. Now just stir that up and come over to the icebox over here. Ooh, a couple of hours of chilling and this humble collection of goods will become food for the gods. Now I know it's going to be hard you're waiting, but your patience will be rewarded, I reckon. Well, that's right, Colonel. Patience is almost always rewarded on good eats, and never more so than when you take a little time to put out a little effort to make your very own marshmallows. See you next time on Good Eats.